Please. Okay, tell me when to start. It's on? Okay, so Shalom, we're very happy to resume our Minchat Chinuch shir. We're in Mitzvah Kaf Aleph of Sefer HaChinuch. Yeah, we're pretty much relatively in the beginning of the Taryag, Mitzvah Kaf Aleph. And the mitzvah that the Sefer HaChinuch counts is Mitzvah Tzipor Yetziat Mitzrayim. Yeah, the mitzvah, let's see, he defines it, as we know, the Sefer HaChinuch. We're now in Sefer HaChinuch. לספר בעניין יציאת מצרים בליל 15 בניסן, כל אחד כפי צחות לשונו. Yeah, to tell the story of Exodus in the Indian, and there is a date. In that sense, it's a time-dependent mitzvah. It's an annual mitzvah, once a year. Tetvav Nisan, eve of Tetvav Nisan, Orlid, yeah. It's the first day. It's the Seder night. Kol echad kafit zechut leshono. Each one should tell this story according to his best wording or in his language. Ulehalel uleshabeach Hashem yitbarach, and to praise, halal leshabeach, praise Hashem yitbarach. Al kol hanisim she'asa lanu sham, meaning the chinuch, and that's a topic of its own. He includes in the mitzvah of Sipor also the halal. He sees it as part of the Sipor. We could have given an entire shir only on this point. I have, but we won't. Sheneimar.
The other option would be to not have it as part of mitzvah at all, right? I mean, there's no separate mitzvah.
The halal, no, or maybe there's a separate mitzvah of halal, but he includes it. He says, what is the definition of Sipor? To tell the story and praise.
But do we have in Psukim any even an asmachta to?
No, so hold on. Shasa lanu sham shenemar vehigata levincha. Yeah, this is a pasuk that is written at the end of our parsha, Parshat Bo. Vehigata levincha bayom hahu lemor. ויגעת לבנך ביום ההוא לאמור בעבור זה עשה השם לי בצאתי ממצרים. So this והגעת לבנך serves as the source to a mitzvah d'oraita of Sipor Yetziat Mitzrayim every Tetvav Nisan. Okay, and let's continue. Kvar Pershu Chachamim, and the sages interpreted the mitzvah Haggadah zohi beleil 15 b'Nisan b'shat achilat matzah. Meaning the Veigata Levincha in the verse itself, it's not written explicitly that it's done annually in every Tetvav Nisan. So this is the sages interpreted it. B'shat achilat matzah, that the time of the mitzvah is when you eat matzah. And actually the sages, and we say it in the Haggadah every year, that midrash of the Tanaim, V'igata levincha ba'avur zeh. What is ba'avur zeh? Zeh is the matzah, Pesach, and Maror. So there's a link between the mitzvah of the Sipor and the matzah and the Maror. So the time of the chiyuv is exactly the time of achilat matzah. And the time of the chiyuv of achilat matzah, this is explicit in the pasuk.
15th. It's
15. So midoraita, I'm just the time. I mean, based on the interpretation of the sages, but they learn it from Psukim, they derive it from Psukim. Ba'avur zeh, v'igata levincha, ba'avur zeh. So they interpret the Psukim. So tachlis, the bottom line is that midoraita, we have a mitzvah at Tetvav Nisan to tell the story of Yetziat Mitzrayim. And the Chinuch says, and again, I don't want to open it, he explains that the commandment of v'igata levincha, part of the Sipor is also the praising. I'll just say perhaps what he claims is that the whole purpose of the Sipor is that you will re-experience and then
you not be able to help yourself
and then think. Uma she'amar hakatuv. Let's just finish the thing. Uma she'amar hakatuv levincha. When the pasuk says to your son, the lav davka bno, it's not necessarily a son. Ela afilu im kol bria. Here, he explains that you should tell it to someone, meaning it should be a certain dialogue. Now, the source of the chiyuv of Sipur Yetziat Mitzrayim, clearly the Sefer HaChinuch holds, we didn't touch the Minchat Chinuch yet, holds that it's the pasuk in our parsha, V'higat Levincha. When you open Maimonides in Mishnah Torah, and I won't open it here for the lack of time, but I'll just quote it, he, Davka, learns it from a different pasuk. Leman Tizkor Zachor, Kmo Zachor Etiop, and then, and why should you tell it to his son, V'higat Levincha, meaning at the end of the day, he uses the pasuk V'higat Levincha, but what seems to be his main source is a different thing, a pasuk from Sefer Dvarim about Zechira. We'll get back to that.
The default of the Sefer HaChinuch is generally to follow the Rambam, right?
Right, and here he does not, but by the way, he goes with the mainstream. You know, most Rishonim, they'll figure that the source for Mitzvah Tzipor is V'higat Levincha. He's pshat. Ve'inen ha-mitzvah she'izkor hanisim ha'inyanim she'eru l'avotenu b'yetziat Mitzrayim, ve'ich lakach hakel yitbarach nikmat ha'enu mehem. You should remember these miracles. V'afilu beino levein atzmo, imein shamachem, but he says, let's say, malasot nebech, he's alone for the Seder night. There are no one else. Chayav lo tziat dvarim befiv. He needs to say it and not only remember it in his mind, he should say it with his mouth. Kedei she'itorer libo badavar. In order that it will awake his heart, arise his heart for this. Ki bedibur itorer alev. You need to do an action so that your heart will connect to it, be aroused. Here we see the Chinuch following his general shita in this parsha. As you know, in previous mitzvos, he laid out a foundation, a very basic thing in the Chinuch's philosophy, acharei ha'pe'ulot yimashchu ha'levavot, that the actions, the physical actions, are arousing have influence on your nefesh. So here he alludes to that. Mishor shei mitzvah zo, the reasons for the mitzvah of Sipur, Masha katuv bekorban Pesach, what I already wrote, he says, look at what I wrote in previous mitzvos. Don't be so astonished or surprised that we have many mitzvot that are geared towards the same purpose. Mitzvot aseh u'mitzvot lo taseh. Hu yesod gadol ve'amud chazak b'toratenu v'emunatenu. The Yetzias Mitzrayim and reliving it and the memory of it is a very big foundation in our Torah and Emunah. That's why we always recite in our brachos and tfilos, Zecher l'Yetziat Mitzrayim. It's such a foundation, it's our proof to the fact that God is the creator, because it proves that he can make miracles, so he can be also the creator. And that there is a infinite a God, meaning infinite in terms that he was always there, and that he has a desire and ability. He is the acting force, he is the creator of everything. And he could change them to whatever he wants. As he did in Mitzrayim, that he changed the nature of the world for us. And he did to us great signs. This will shut up every heretic that says no, there is no creator. This is validating, founding the emunah in the awareness of God. And that he has ashgacha and ability in all the general things and detailed things. Dinei mitzvah. Now he outlines the dinim of the Seder, and we'll skip that, and we'll jump straight to Ot Vav here at the bottom of the page. Venoheget bezcharim uvenekevos b'chol makom u'b'chol zman. That this mitzvah is actually both men and women are obligated in it, in every location, meaning galot, and in every time, meaning always. It's not dependent on, let's say, when the temple is built or whatever. One who fails to do this Torah obligation of reciting the story every 15th of Nisan night, he is actually canceling an aseh. Now, you noted that he says that women are obligated just as men. Mm-hmm. Is that surprising?
Well, it does sound like mitzvah daseh shazman.
It is a time-dependent mitzvah, and the Minchat Chinuch, look at the Minchat Chinuch. Davar ze chidush gadol etzli. You see, left-hand side. Davar ot vav there, at the left-hand side, small. ונוהגת בזכרים ונקבות, דבר זה חידוש גדול אצלי. למה תהיה נוהגת מצווה זו בנשים? I'm very surprised at this chiddush. Why should this mitzvah apply to nashim? After all, it's a mitzvah daseh shazman gerama v'nashim pturot. So the Minchat Chinuch makes exactly your comment, and he tries to answer, but this also, only if we'll have time, we're going to touch this, because we have some very, very important stuff to discuss. It's a very classic Minchat Chinuch, a famous Minchat Chinuch. I spoke about it a lot in Shul, meaning the beginning of the Minchat Chinuch that we'll now learn. Spoke it in Drashos and Shul. Many Achronim speak about many Shurim on this. So it's mamash, we're learning a classic thing. So we will start with that. So flip back to the beginning of the mitzvah. So I'll remind, the Sefer HaChinuch says there is a positive mitzvah to tell the story of Exodus every Tetvav Nisan. Now look at the Minchat Chinuch. We start down, you see down in the right column, very down here. Mitzvah zo, this mitzvah, Ayin Rambam, I promised you, he will refer to the Perek Zayin Hilchos Chametz u'Matzah Halacha Aleph Hey, U'mevii mipasuk zachor et hayom hazeh asher yatzatem miMitzrayim. As I promised you, it's a pasuk in Shmot. I was wrong. It's not Deuteronomy, but it's a different pasuk. The Rambam says the source is not v'higat lebincha, but rather zachor et hayom hazeh. Remember this day that you went out of Egypt. And what is this day? Tetvav Nisan. So Rabbi Weiss says that's why the Rambam picks this pasuk, because it alludes to the fact that the chiyuv is in this day. I told you, the Chinuch has a good answer too. The sages made it Rasha ba'avur zeh, b'sha'ah zeh is the matzah, b'sha'ah matzah umar. But Rambam went directly. Zachor et hayom hazeh, asher etzem. So just like, and the Rambam says, Kemo shomrim zachor et yom haShabbat l'kadsho. When do you commemorate Shabbos and Kiddush? So it's mamash parallel. It's brilliant. Whether zachor et hayom hazeh asher etzem Mitzrayim, when do you recite it? In Tetvav Nisan.
Right.
Yeah.
But he's missing the Sipur though. Directly from
good. So the Rambam hears, but the Rambam doesn't stop here. That's all.
Right. You said how you connected.
Uminayin. Yeah, he quotes the entire Rambam. Uminayin shebeleil tetvav. By the way, here you see, according to what I said, he doesn't have to ask minayin shebeleil. It's zachor et hayom hazeh. But no, the Rambam says, and where do I know that this zachor et hayom hazeh is at the eve of tetvav? Shenemar v'yigalu bayom hahu lemor ba'avur zeh. Okay? So he, uve'emet, says the Minchas Chinuch, Shnei hapsukim mashlimim din hamitzvah. They are complementary. Each one covers a different aspect. De'imi pasuk zachor. If I would have had only the verse zachor et hayom hazeh, remember this day that you went out of Egypt, hava amina kmo b'chol yom mazkir yitziat Mitzrayim b'fnei atzmo, ve'ino modi'a livno. Just as every day you have a chiyuv of commemorating Yetziat Mitzrayim, and this doesn't require to tell your son. It's just you're reminding yourself every morning and night. Yeah, mitzvat zechirat Yetziat Mitzrayim. Hachinami beleil tetvav. So if I had only zachor et hayom hazeh, I would think it's the same as the chira. I wouldn't know that you need to tell your son. V'imi pasuk v'higata have amina. דווקא אם יש לו בן, או אחר עמו לספר. אבל אם הוא ביחידי אינו מצווה. But if you are alone, if you happen to be alone, then you don't have a special mitzvah. על כן הביא הפסוק דזכור, דגם בפני עצמו מצווה להזכיר. והרב המחבר, now he speaks about the Sefer HaChinuch. So he says the Rambam needed both psukim for the reason he explained. But he says that the author, Sefer HaChinuch, kalal kol hadinim bepasuk zeh v'higata lechud. He learned everything from one pasuk. V'higata levincha. And by the way, all Rishonim are like Sefer HaChinuch. Rambam is unique here. Ve'nafka mina kol kach. Lo ra'iti la'arich b'zeh. He says, I don't want to spend too much time on this issue of the source, because I don't see really a big ramification whether I learn from two psukim or only for one pasuk. Rabbi does have some stuff on it, but let's continue. V'hinei l'cha'ira. Now we are getting to we're hitting the nail. This is the famous piece of the Minchat Chinuch that everyone deals with. V'hinei l'cha'ira tzarich iyun al Rambam. He says here in Halacha Aleph in Sefer HaMitzvos, the moneh ha-mitzvah l'saper b'leil tetvav, that he counts this as a separate mitzvah. Ma'im al-yuta deleze mikol ha-leilot. Ha-mitzvah la'azkir yitziat Mitzrayim b'chol yom u'v'chol layla. Ayin brachos yud bet amud bet. Mazkirin yitziat Mitzrayim b'leilot. I'll continue, but I'm just, first of all, laying out the basic question. He continues. He says, if I'll say it in a pun, he asks, "Ma nishtana halayla hazeh mikol halelot?" That's the question of the Minchat Chinuch. He says, I don't get the Rambam. And by the way, it's especially the way he understood the Rambam, because he said the Rambam actually learns from Zachor et hayom hazeh. It's mamash schira. And he says, at any rate, he says, but even though you erased my last clause, he says, I don't get it. What is the added value? What is added by this separate commandment? That you have to do something every 15th night. We have that chiyuv every day and every night. So every night we're obligated to lahazkir at Yetziat Mitzrayim, to ourselves. So what is added at all in this annual mitzvah? Nothing is added. This is his question. Now, before we continue, Yechezkel, I'm sure you have an answer, immediate answer from the top of your head. When the Minchat Chinuch asked that question, everyone that is learning this is saying, I don't get it. What is he asking, B'chlal? Tell me.
Well, I mean, of course, this is going according to the Rambam only. According to him.
No. Forget about Rambam, not Rambam. Just say, if I would ask you, out of the blue, I'll take a frum man on the street that didn't learn. I said, look, every night there is a mitzvah of Schirat Yetziat Mitzrayim, and one night there is a mitzvah of Sipur Yetziat Mitzrayim. So what's the difference between the two? Well,
that's more mishubach, but the idea is that you have to tell things, that there's expound.
Meaning, forget it. You correct yourself. It's l'chor, not li'kuva. That's what he will tell him. It's b'diavad. If you weren't marber, you're still yotze. But you said that's a sign. You said that's an indicator. Right. That's an indicator that the nature of these mitzvahs are very different. It's not a coincidence that one is called Zechir Yetziat Mitzrayim, one is called Sipur Yetziat Mitzrayim. What's the difference between reminding yourself every day something and telling a story? It's two different things. Here you need to tell a story. Marbe, not marbe, you need to tell a story.
That had happened, and what happened?
To tell a story. And here you need just to commemorate that. So, his question is a little puzzling. It's very clear what's the difference. I'm not obligated every night to tell the story. I'm obligated just to remind myself that I was taken out of Egypt. Okay, don't worry, he's aware of that. But I'm saying, first of all, this is the simple answer. And not only that's the simple answer, I'll give the spoiler, that's the answer, in my eyes. Meaning the answer, the simple balabatish pshat answer is the real answer, and you can build on this balabatish intuitive understanding and make it lamdish, as you'll say. But the same thing. That's the core of the answer. I gave already the spoiler. The very evident, straightforward. The Minchat Chinuch, for his reasons, doesn't like that answer. And therefore he's stuck. Okay? And we'll see. Well, he has an argument. We'll see. We'll deal with his argument. But let's see we're just in the beginning again. But that's the topic. That's the topic. Okay, the relationship between mitzvah zechiras yetziat mitzrayim that is every day and the annual chiyuv. Okay, that's the topic of this year. We'll say it this way. So here, he says, what is that adding over the chiyuv of every night? There is a mitzvah to remind yourself Yetziat Mitzrayim every day and every night. Nachon? I am brachos. Mazkirin Yetziat Mitzrayim baleilos. Yeah, he says in the Gemara in Brachos, it says clearly that the chiyuv of Zechira is also at night. And now he says, that's a parenthetical remark, but important. He says, hey, maybe there's a great answer here. There is a machlokas, we say it in the Haggadah, between Ben Zoma and Chachamim. Appears in Brachos, the Tanaik machloket between Ben Zoma and it's a Braita in Brachos and also a Braita in the Haggadah. Lemant is kol yemei chayah. Kol is a ribui. Ben Zoma says kol is not only days, also nights. And we rule like him. Perhaps. It's a machloket if we rule like him. And Chachamim say no. Kol is to include Yemot HaMashiach. That even in Yemot, meaning alluding that Ben Zoma perhaps says that when there will be Yemot HaMashiach, you won't have the Chiyuv Yetziat Mitzrayim. But on the other hand, perhaps Chachamim claim that Yetziat Mitzrayim, you're not chayav to commemorate it at nights, only at days, because they use the call for Yemot HaMashiach. So he says, so here I have a great answer. We were like Chachamim. We don't have a chiyuv of Zechiras Yetziat Mitzrayim in the Laila. So only in Leil Tetvav we have a mitzvah tzipor, a great solution. Yeah. So he says, Av de l'chor Chachamim pligei, Bikom kol Rava Poiskim v'Arambam Michlalam, in Perek Aleph B'Hilchos Kriyat Shema, Pasku keben Zoma, the mitzvah lazkir Yitziat bayom uvelayla, Shenemal mantis kor yom mitzit chamer zmai, kol yemei chayich ayin sham, u'zchir Yetziat Mitzrayim bayom uvelayla hu midoraita, ayem brachot kafalef. Okay, that's another building block. So first of all, he says, I have a kasha on the Rambam, right? My hypothetical solution doesn't work for the Rambam. Because the Rambam clearly rules, like Ben Zoma, that there is a chiyuv to commemorate Yetziat Mitzrayim every night. Right. So we return to the original question, what is the added commandment at the eve of Tetvav? Right. And the solution that we don't rule like Ben Zoma doesn't work because the Rambam does rule like Ben Zoma, that there is a chiyuv every night. And maybe you will say that it's only an asmachta and the chiyuv of Zchirat Yetziat at nights, according to him, is merely rabbinic, and that will be a solution. So he says, no, I'll prove you from the Gemara, even though there is an opinion there that it's rabbinic, but that's not how the Rambam rules. Again, the Rambam rules that it's the Raita, based on the opinion in the Gemara Brachot Kafalev, Safek Amar Emet V'Yatziv, if he is in a doubt, whether he said it is Emes V'Yatziv, that Emes V'Yatziv includes Yetziat Mitzrayim, as we know, Kol B'Choreim Maratov Kochav Yam Suf Bakata. So, if he has a doubt whether he says Emes V'Yatziv, Choyzer V'Koreh, the Yetziat Mitzrayim D'Oraita.
Don't we get Zechor Yetziat Mitzrayim from Shema?
We do, but listen to the line here. Safek Amar Emet V'Yatziv. If he is in doubt whether he said Emet V'Yatziv, so he needs to say it because it's fake D'Oraita, because the Yetziat Mitzrayim D'Oraita. Af Laman Desover Kriyat Shema D'Rabanan, meaning even though there is a shita that we don't rule like, that chiyuv kriyat shema, the entire chiyuv kriyat shema is only rabbinic, and according to that opinion, if you have a suffix whether you said shema or vayomer, then you don't have to repeat. But still, that opinion says that if you missed emet v'yatziv, you need to repeat because chirat yetziat mitzrayim is their right. So he says here, you see that chirat imken. So since we established that the Rambam rules that there is a chiyuv, Zchirat Yetziat Mitzrayim every night, and that it's the Raita, imken, conclusion, my nitvasef b'leil tetvav. What is added in the eve of the Vayein Pri Chadash, Hilchos Kriyat Shema, Erich Binyanim Elu. Okay. All right. So he says, I have a question. Now we had a simple answer.
Yep.
But let's see what V'gam ein lomar, he will be now busy ruling out potential answers. V'gam ein lomar de tamid dai behirhur, v'chtiv tizkor, ayin megillah, zachor yachol balev, v'kan d'chtiv v'igada tzarich agada b'peh. He says, maybe you want to offer that the zechira of every night, at least b'di'evid, could be only with remembering in your mind. And the vehigadta, levincha vehihagada, that should be with your mouth. Zaino, he says, I'm ruling out this answer. Ayin shut shagasaria hilchos chirat yitzam, siman yud gimel and shagasaria, herich levarer, she'eino yoytze chovato behirhur.
For every day.
Yep, that the mitzvah of zechira cannot be done behirhur. Okay? You must do the zechira by mouth, the every night zechira. And by the way, it has to do because we know that zachor et yom HaShabbat l'kadsho is with your mouth, and zachor et asher salacha amalek, it's with your mouth. They only learn it from drashos. Okay, so it's here the same. Velomar, now he rules out what seemed to be the most appealing answer. So let's see how he rules it out. Velomar, the bekol yom dai behaskarat yetziat mitzrayim lechud belo sipur. Every day it's enough just to mention it, remind yourself it in your mouth without a story. Vekan, just as the Sefer HaChinuch said, tzarich sipur hanisim v'niflaut she'aseh imanu Hashem yitbarach. Kannai me'arambam ve'arav ha'mechaber kan u'masechet psakim ayen sham. Meaning, the lashon of the Rambam is mitzvat aseh l'saper banisim. Okay? And that's also the lashon of the Sefer HaChinuch. Al kol hanisim she'aseh lanu sham. Yeah? Just to give you the language of the Rambam here. Okay? The Seder? Mm-hmm. The Rambam says clearly, mitzvat aseh min haTorah l'saper benisim v'niflaot shenasu lavotenu b'Mitzrayim. Okay, so he says here I have a great answer. The definition of the mitzvah according to the Sefer HaChinuch and the Rambam is l'saper benisim v'niflaos. And in every day you don't have to be l'saper benisim. You just need to remind yourself that God took me out of Egypt. That's what seems from the Rambam and the Sefer HaChinuch and the Gemara itself when it presents the mitzvah of V'yigatel Levincha. So why does he rule out such a very appealing answer? The Efshar, look at that. The Gam Beleil Pesach Yotze Behazkara Lechud. He says, I'll bring you a shita that even the mitzvah of Sipur, B'di'evet, your Yotze, only by mentioning it. Ayin bepri chadash, otvav, the bahazkarat yetziat mitzrayim bekidush yatsa. Amazing. The pri chadash says, it's a very mechudash shita, and he is relying on him.
That's enough to say.
The pri chadash says, he mentions the question of al rishonim. Why isn't there a birkas mitzvos before telling the story of Sherti Chamzal the Saper B'Tziadim or something like that? Why there is no Birkat HaMitzvos on the mitzvah of Sipur? And he says because B'Di'evet your Yotze, by just mentioning it in the Kiddush, so we return to square one. If B'Di'evet this is enough to fulfill this mitzvah, so what this mitzvah add it all to the chiyuv that I have anyway, every night. V'ayin ran b'psachim shekatav dekol shelo amar shlosha dvarim lu b'pesach lo yatzai yedei chavato. He says we have a Mishnah, Rabban Gamliel Omer. This is a Mishnah in Psachim that we say in the Haggadah. Kol shelo amar shlosha dvarim elu lo yatzai yedei chavato. Pesach matzah u'maror. So you see that to say Pesach matzah u'maror is says, no, because you look in the Ran there, the Ran and the Ramban there say that the meaning of the wording there is not as seems to you pshat, lo yatsa yedei chovato, le'ikuva. It's not le'ikuva. Lo yatsa yedei chovato, הכוונה, he didn't make the mitzvah in its best way.
Okay.
Lo yatsa yedei
So
chovato min
those are
hamufchar.
weird words to use for something that's
Right, but they're saying it, the Ran and the Ramban.
Right.
It's their shita. So he says, that's how.
So Kiddush would still be
consequently, the Pri Chadash says that by just mentioning the fact of Yetziat Mitzrayim and Kiddush, you fulfilled your commandment of Sipur. So I'm stuck. What is the added commandment every night? And what is the added commandment at the Erev Pesach? Ulefi zeh, ulefi ma shekatavnu, efshar lomar. He says, and according to what we said previously, maybe an answer will be the tamid mitzvah lehazkir b'fnei. I want to finish the piece in the Minchat Chinuch to give him the kavod and everything, and also everything he says here is extremely important. I'll just say that even though he dismissed this answer, mentioning versus telling a story, why? Because of the Pri Chadash. I would argue that this is the real answer, what he just ruled out. And I will even say, and that's my personal chiddush as opposed to what I see, that I could say it even according to the Pri Chadash. But that seems weird. Okay, how? You're right. So we'll leave it till the end. But let's continue. Let's see what he offers here. ולפי מה שכתבנו אפשר לומר דתמיד המצווה להזכיר בפני עצמו ולא להגיד לשאר ולא להגיד לבנו וכאן המצווה לספר לבנו אבל אם אין עמו אחר המצווה אם אין עמו אחר המצווה להזכיר בעצמו שווה לשאר הלילות. Here he offers a radical thing that here the Mahadir, the publisher in footnote Gimel says that actually it seems like that from the Rashbats. That's a tremendous chiddush. This is being very radical. He offers that indeed, if you're alone, you don't have an extra commandment at the eve of the Tetvav. You'll just have the regular commandment of commemoration, and you're not high, meaning you can't fulfill. You can't fulfill the chiyuv of Tetvav Nisan. The chiyuv of Tetvav Nisan is only to tell someone else.
Anyone else, based on what we said before.
V'igata levincha, and if not levincha, to someone else. But you don't have a commandment to tell the story to yourself, because telling the story is only mentioning it, b'diavad, as we said. So that's it. Okay, so that is an offer.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean,
that's an offer that what is added in the Tetvav to tell someone else. That's the answer here. And but you have it to mention to someone else. Yeah, if we'll follow the Pri Chadash that your Yotze Kiddush. Ach kevan de ikar hamitzvah hamechudeshet lesaper leacher. Now he says, since the Chiddush is to tell someone else, im ken lama evi Rambam pasuk zeh de zachor. Typically, the chayiv kmo bekol leilot mi pasuk leman tizkor. כמו שדרשו בש"ס, ברכות שם מפסוק זה. ומביאו בעצמו בהלכות קרישמה, כמו שהבאנו. So he says, this answer could serve well for the Chinuch, but for the Rambam that his main source is Zachor, that's a little weird. אפשר לומר, דכיוון דזכירת יציאת מצרים בלילות, לא דרשינן אלא מריבוי הדקול, אם כן לא הווה אלא מדרשה, וחל השבוע עליו, אם נשבע שלא יזכור או שיזכור. אבל בליל ט"ו היא עשה מפורשת במניין תרי"ג, אם כן אין שבועה חלה אלא בכולל. ובשאר לילות כיוון דהביה מריבויה, דכל הווה כמו חצי שיעור וחל השבוע. וואו, עין רמב"ם שבועס ותופסות סוגיה דכולל, מובא כמה פעמים בחיבור זה. Now he offers another answer, very sharp. He says the chiyuv of schira is learned from a drasha at night. It's kol yemei chayecha. It's not explicit. And the chiyuv of sipur, zachoret hayom hazeh, according to the Rabbi, is explicit. There is a nafkamina whether something is explicit or from a drasha, even though it has a validity of chiyuv deraita. The nafkamina is if I am swearing, taking a shvua not to do it. It's not chal on an explicit pasuk because you're mushba va'omid mahar Sinai, but it is chal on a chiyuv that was learned from a drasha.
Interesting.
That's a gemara.
That applies to.
Yeah. So he says here you'll have enough kamina between that's the added value of the mitzvah of sipur that you can't cancel it by shvua, whereas the mitzvah of every night you can cancel by shvua.
Okay.
And he says,
it's creative.
Im kain shvua ein shvua chala ela bekola. There's one way that the shvua will be chal even on sipur and everything that is even explicit. If you have a shvua that is not only to cancel it, but to something more general, and it's part of it. Okay, but these are details.
I mean, there are hashkafic implications to that. Does that mean that we did not accept that Har Sinai?
That is, look, this is an entire topic of Ein Shvua Chala Mitzvah, whether it's from Drasha or not. We're not going into it. Ach be'emet, lefi zeh zchirat yetzirat Mitzrayim bayom, have yaseh. Now he digresses a little bit. And he says, according to this, to all the mahalach I did here, I assume that the mitzvah of Zechira is a Doraita Chiyuv. At night from a drasha, kol, and at days mamash from an explicit pasuk. Yeah, lamantis kor yemei. Yeah, okay, kol yemei chayecha. It's yeah. ולא מצאתי לרמב"ם והרב המחבר ומוני המצוות שימנו זכיר למצוות הזה בשום פעם. Here he asks a new question, a famous question. How come the mitzvah of Zchiras Yetziat Mitzrayim, not of Sipur, the daily mitzvah of Zchiras Yetziat, is not counted by Sefer HaMitzvot as a Sefer Mitzvah, by the Rambam as a separate mitzvah, by the Sefer HaChinuch as a separate mitzvah? How come? Ayin Elchot Kriyat Shema, Kalal Yetzias Mitzrayim b'mitzvat Aseh, the Kriyat Shema. Rak Deleil Tetvav Mena'al Mitzvah Bifnei Atzma. Yeah, he says the Rambam included the Zechira in the mitzvah of Kriyat Shema as a detail mitzvahs.
In the mitzvah for Pesach?
No. Kalal Yetziat Mitzrayim means the Zechira in the daily commandment of Kriyat Shema. Only Leil Tetvav he counted as a separate. B'tzarich Yun Lama. Kevian Defila Mikra, since we have a source, a separate source for Zechiras Yetziat Mitzrayim daily, Lama lo nimna lemitzvah kechol mitzvot. Why isn't it counted separately? ומצאתי בפרי מגדים בפתיחה כוללת הלכות קריאת שמע כתב ככל מה שכתבנו. He actually said, I found that the Pri Megadim of the analysis we did here, he says himself. וגם בצלח ברכות, צלח is the note Rabbi Yehuda, היקשה זה.
Why? Is that it? Why tzlach?
Tzlach is tziyun lenefesh chaya, named after his mom, I think, Chaya. As Rabbi Blachman says, here he named a book, a Chidushim book, after his mom, tziyun lenefesh Chaya. So today we wouldn't pass even family mishpacha, like he was very sarcastic and bitter. V'gam betzlach brachot hiksha zeh. So the Noda B'Yehuda asked the same question. The lama lo manu monei mitzvot zchir sitziat Mitzrayim b'kol yom lemitzvot asa b'fnei atzma. Why didn't they count it as a separate mitzvah? V'katav the nafka mipasuk laman tizkor v'lo nemar b'lashon tzivui zachor. He says, actually, when you look at the mitzvah, at the source for zechir sitziat Mitzrayim laman tizkor tzedcha me'eretz Mitzrayim kol yemei chayecha laman tizkor, it's not a tzivui, it's like a reasoning. And even though we alluded, we derived from that there is indeed a mitzvah lizkor. Kol you can't count it as a mitzvah. It's like one of the rules of what is counted as a mitzvah, but it's a mitzvah. Why wouldn't they take the Rambam's pasuk for Sipur? They would take it for a distinct commandment for Zechira every day. Zachor et hayom hazeh. And you need to say that they assume that this, or they had in Masorah that this pasuk is only for Leil Zachor et hayom hazeh. I think Reb Asher, I didn't see it clear, but I heard someone that quoted him that he says, yeah, it's like Zachor et Yom HaShabbat, that you do it on Friday night. So Zachor et Hayom Hazeh is only at the eve of Tevav. Kamvor kam baram ve'ena mechil tatach edadi. Very til Rashi bechuma shal pasuk Zachor et Hayom Hazeh v'zel shalom hamash mazkirin tziyam b'kol yom. Dafka Rashi did that. That from this pasuk of the Rambam he learned the mitzvah of Zechira every day. V'zet tzar chiyun. The Chazal amdu mikrad leman amuchar b'Torah v'lo mipasuk zeh. Uvadai הייתה קבלה בידם. למה מביא רש"י דרשה זו על כל יום? כיוון דמחיר מורה דקרא אלוקאי אלא ליל ט"ו, as the Rambam said. וצריך עיון. שהוא בא לידי מזרחי על רש"י, וכתב שרש"י למד זה ממילת זכור, שהוא לשון הווה, תהיה זוכר זה תמיד, יזכור ובעיני יפלא, כיוון דבש"ס לא יאלף על אזכר בכל יום, רק מלמען תזכור, גם הרמב"ם שווה המחילתא, he quoted the Mechilta, Tanaik, that Zachor is only on Tetvav, גם פסוק זה מלשם דבלילה גם כן מזכירים, וכל ימי חייכם, ובלזה אמר שם, לא זכית שם עד שדרשה בן זומה, על כורכך כול ספר מפסוק זה לא אומר רק לליל פסח, אבל לא כרש"י ז"ל וצריך עיון מאוד. So he doesn't like what Rashi says, that the Zachor at היום הזה is the source for Zechira every day. על כל פנים במצווה דאנן בה, says, at the end of the day he says, the mitzvah that we're busy with, the Beleil Tetvav, hu mitzvah taseh min haTorah, lekol echad miYisrael להזכיר. וגם להגיד לבניו, או לאחרים ישמו. וגם אפשר לסדר קצת באריכות ניסים ונפלאות. And he also, it's good, I am pri megadim hilchos Pesach. That's it. End of the piece that we're focusing on. Which time do we have? Okay. Now, I will add what other Achronim say against Minchat Chinuch and add my shtickle twist. Rav Soloveitchik in Shurim L'Zecher Rabbi Mari quotes in the name of Reb Chaim, and also Reb Chaim himself, it's written in his Reb Chaim Al-Ashaf, the Reb Chaim stencil. He says there are several differences between Mitzvah Zechira and Mitzvah Tzipor. The one mentioned by him, first of all, the ones that he mentioned and ruled out, to tell the Nisim and the Niflot, and to call Hamarberis and the Shubach. So if you're not Marbe, but to tell, the simple answer, yeah. To tell the son or someone else, that it should be, and now we add some, that it should be formatted as a question and answer, a dialogue. The Zechira doesn't have to be formatted as a question and answer. That it should matchil bignut umesayim b'shvach, start in the bad and finish in the good.
Saying these are all ma'akev?
So that's a good question. Perhaps it's not ma'akev. Maybe he understood some is ma'akev. But at any rate, it has to do with the content, a chiluk of the content, and exactly what he didn't like. And Rav Soloveitchik himself adds more. He says, Rav Soloveitchik adds, and also, the Reb Chaim says, this is still in the name of Reb Chaim, Zechira Sitzat Mitzrayim is not a commandment on its own. Now he touches the second question of this Minchat Chinuch. How come it's not counted? Reb Chaim, it's a famous Reb Chaim, and it's brought in Shurim L'Zecher Rabbi Mari. Zechira Sitzat Mitzrayim, indeed, the Rambam understood that it's part of the mitzvah of Kabbalas Ol Malchut Shamayim. What is Kabbalas Ol Malchut Shamayim? Shema Yisrael. And I'm remembering Yetziat Mitzrayim, meaning, what is the mean? Ani Hashem asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim liyot lachem le'elokim. That's the meaning. He took us out of Egypt, and therefore we're his slaves. We're accepting his yoke. So Zechirat Yetziat Mitzrayim is a detail is a commandment, indeed, a daily commandment, but part of the general chiyuv of Kabbalah's Ol Malchus Shamayim, as opposed to the Sipur is a mitzvah on its own. Now, of course, there is most Rishonim, what's a little tricky here, that many Rishonim will not accept that last formulation of Reb Chaim, because they're saying that Parshat Tzitzit is not leikuva in Kriyat Shema. According to Reb Chaim, it should be. It's an integral part of Kabbalah's Ol Malchut Shamayim. And says Rav Soloveitchik himself, I want to add more. The chova of the Zechira is not affecting you, is not causing you to be chayiv to say praising and hallel. But mitzvah Sipur, part of it is also not only to tell the miracles, but to consequently, lefichach anachnu chayavim lehodot ulehalel. So that's another addition of the chiyuv of the Sipur over the chiyuv
every day.
Of the everyday. Now, as you mentioned, now let's see, what will the Minchat Chinuch say? It says, hello, I brought you from the Pri Chadash that if you said Kiddush, you're Yotze B'diavad. Okay? So all of these things that you mentioned, telling somewhere else, and by the way, as opposed to what he offered then as a second answer, that if you don't have a son or someone else, you're not your pater, you could say something, no, even to yourself, but you need to tell the story to yourself as if there is someone next to you in a form of dialogue, of question and answer. Okay. But, hello, the Minchat Chinuch says the Pri Chadash, according to him, but the Evid at least, it's enough just to mention your Yotze and Kiddush, but the Evid, the mitzvah of Sipur. So first of all, you could say, with all the respect to the Minchat Chinuch and the Pri Chadash, we're not ruling like the Pri Chadash. We are indeed going according to Pshat, that Zechira is Zechira, and Sipur is Sipur.
And Kiddush doesn't.
Because you need to understand that all of these distinctions, or almost all of these distinctions that we mentioned, have a common denominator. That's the point. One ikaron, which is his first answer. Matchil begnutu mesayim b'shvach. Format of question of an answer. Telling someone else, all of them just are indicators or flowing from symptoms of the same core thing, that this is only commemoration, whereas this is a story. Question and answer, interesting, experiential, we'll say. Experiential versus cognitive reminder. By the way, this distinction, that this is cognitive reminder, this is an experiential thing. I owe to Rav Yair Khan. That's how he formulates that difference between Zechira and Sipur, following Rav Soloveitchik and Reb Chaim. Mm-hmm. So first of all, I can say, I just don't accept the Pri Chadash, because that's the simple answer. But I want to say, and this is my little take on this,
even according to him,
even according to the Pri Chadash, I'm applying this. How? I can just mention the Zechira, mention the fact I was taken out of Egypt at the eve of Tetvav. By the way, according to the Pri Chadash, I don't even have to say that. And the Rabbi says, no, perhaps what's Leikuva is to say Nisim and Niflaot and to say the day.
But that's not in Kiddush.
Yeah, so again, it won't go with the Pri Chadash. Okay? But let's say I adopt the Pri Chadash totally. I think there is a difference. The same shorts, let's say I'm in stress. I'm serving in the army now. I have 30 seconds to perform the mitzvah of Sipur Yetziat Mitzrayim. So I'll rely on the Pri Chadash. Am I reminding myself? What is my intention, Kavanas Halev, when I am saying that short sentence? Am I just reminding myself that I went out of Egypt, or am I put in it, the input that I put in it, the input that I'm putting in it is reliving, seeing myself as if I went out of Egypt. So I could say the same words, but they will bear a different intention and a different meaning. And that will be exactly the difference between the mitzvah of Sechira and the mitzvah of Sipur. And this is what I commanded to do only at the eve of Tetvav, even according to the Pri Chadash.
Same words, but...
Same words, but not as a Zechira, but as a Sipur.
Interesting.
That's the point.
I like that.
So that's my solution to the Minchas Chinuch answer, even according to what he wants to assume, that B'diavad we rely on the Pri Chadash. I got this idea, though he doesn't say it at all, from Rav Yair Khan's very brilliant article called Leman Tesaper Uleman Tizkor. He takes Rav Soloveitchik's, based on Reb Chaim's distinction, formulation, and he says the difference is the following, really. He connects here Agada, Halacha, and Machshava. He's saying, every night you're not expected to re-experience your Exodus. This is not realistic, and you're not commanded to do it, and you don't need to do it. You're not expected, and we don't even want you to do it. Every night, what you're doing in Kriyat Shema, you're saying, I live here. Not I'm going back in the time tunnel. No, I'm now here in Mitzvah Ramot. I'm in Mitzvah Ramot 2024 every day. And I am a slave of God. Now, I accept the Malchus Shamayim now on my life here. Why? Because I remember that I'm a slave. Right. That's what I need to do every night. What do I need to do once a year? I need to go back in the time tunnel to relive the Exodus, to re-experience it emotionally, re-experience it, and then automatically, after I feel that I'm saved now by a miracle, I'm automatically responding lefichach lehodot ulahalo, with thanksgiving, and that re-experiencing once a year gives me perhaps the energy or everything that then every night, of course I'm not reliving it. Furthermore, the purpose is dafka to connect him to now, to the here and now, whereas the purpose once a year to go back in the past, relive it, and thank Hashem. It's two different things. This is the Zechira for my life here. And this is the Sipur. Based on that, I said my formulation about the Pri Chadash. Yeah, I could say the same words, but
experience it differently.
But experience them totally. I have a different intent totally. And that's will be the mitzvah of Sipur, that is the added value over the mitzvah of Zechira.
I like that.
Chaverim, shkoyach. Right? We didn't touch the chiyuv nashim, but beseder.